Set in a dystopian future, the Westworld is one of the theme parks operated by Delos, Inc., keeping the American Old West theme alive. These parks have numerous biomechanical robots called the hosts, which are indistinguishable from humans. The hosts are given narratives every day and they entertain their wealthy guests, the humans, for their sexual, violent, or sadistic gratifications. After a narrative is played out, the robot's memory is wiped clean, and they have no recollection of the prior events. Since the hosts are artificially manufactured, they lack some normal human responses, e.g. they are unbothered by bugs crawling on their faces. These robots were originally created 35 years ago by Dr. Robert Ford and Arnold Weber. These robots easily pass the Turing test, which is designed to test if the AI is indistinguishable from human intelligence. But Arnold wanted more. He created the robots in such a way that they could hear their programming inside their head, like a monologue, and wanted to test if they could eventually develop a sense of self-awareness. In the first episode, a train brings over humans or guests in an area called Sweetwater. Next, we see Dolores, a host who bids farewell to her father Peter and heads towards Sweetwater for supplies. There, she runs into Teddy, and after rekindling their old flame, she invites him back to her farm. However, when they get there, they hear a gunshot from inside the house. Rushing inside, they find Peter beaten up by two burglars, Rebus and Walter. Teddy shoots them fatally, but when another bandit appears, he is unable to shoot him. The man in black is a guest, and as per protocol, the hosts are unable to harm the guests. The guest kills Teddy and drags Dolores away, annoyed that she does not remember him even after 30 years of regular visiting. Since the man in black has been around long enough, he manages to track down a particular host and finds an image of a map under his skull. The morning after, the sheriff host of Sweetwater keeps glitching. They take him to the central control station, the Mesa Hub, where the recent Reveries update from Dr. Ford seems to be causing the malfunction. The Reverie code gives the host vague memories of their past experiences. Later that night, the bandit Walter turns aggressive toward his men. To hide this from the park's guests, the QA director Teresa orders all hosts with Reveries to be checked, while giving the guests a makeshift narrative of a bandit massacre to cover for the removal of the affected hosts. The next day, Peter finds a photo of the outside world, which causes him to malfunction. Before the maintenance team of Westworld comes for him, he whispers something in Dolores's ear, leaving her extremely puzzled. At Mesa, Dr. Ford figures out that Peter was about to reveal what the park actually is to Dolores, so he has head of security Ashley Stubbs interview Dolores. However, Dolores only repeats what Peter said, which was, "These violent delights have violent ends," and claims she does not understand what he meant. After a thorough analysis, all hosts are ordered to return, except for Peter and Walter, who are moved to the storage unit. As per maintenance protocol, the hosts are regularly questioned via a checklist. When Dolores is asked if she can harm a living being, she says no. But later, when she is going by her routine, she smacks a fly that lands on her neck, implying that she has changed. In the next episode, Logan Delos and his best friend William come to Westworld, where the latter is somewhat hesitant. The morning after, William returns a food tin to Dolores, who digs the farm later to find a hidden pistol. On the other hand, the man in black uses the skull maze to find Lawrence the outlaw, just in time before he is executed, taking him back to his home village. The man in black demands answers regarding the maze. Many villagers gather around and the man in black kills them all, including Lawrence's wife. Just when he is about to kill his daughter, she speaks about a snake in a riverbed, and the man in black leaves with Lawrence as his hostage. On the other hand, Dolores bumps into Madame Maeve Milley, the prostitute host, and repeats Peter's words to her, triggering past memories of a daughter and Maeve being ambushed by the man in black. Overwhelmed, her performance with the guests declines, which is noticed by the maintenance staff, and they bring Maeve in for assessment. Just as the technicians Sylvester and Felix are about to repair her, Maeve wakes up and escapes, learning what the hosts are subjected to in the operations center, after which she is captured and sedated. In the next scene, Elsie mentions to her boss, the lead programmer Bernard, that putting Dolores in the park might have been a bad decision, but Bernard dismisses her, believing Dolores is functioning normally. Later, Dr. Ford takes Bernard to a Christian shrine in the park, which he intends to use in his new narrative. The third episode opens with Dolores having visions of the man in black. When she meets Teddy in Sweetwater, she asks him to teach her how to shoot. However, she is unable to pull the trigger, oblivious to the fact that her programming refrains her from doing so. In the next scene, Teddy is reprogrammed by Dr. Ford to search and kill Sergeant Wyatt, a cult leader terrorizing the countryside. A group of hosts and guests seek the cult, but when they are ambushed, the guests flee and the hosts are killed. Before being mobbed up, Teddy realizes that his bullets have no effect on the cult members. In the next scene, Bernard talks to Dr. Ford about his updates that have been causing some hosts to act erratically. Walter turning against his own men since he remembered what they did to him in previous scenarios and having a conversation with some guy named Arnold. This is where Dr. Ford tells him about Arnold, co-founder of the park, who wanted self-awareness in the hosts but died due to an accident. This reminds Bernard of his late wife Lauren and son Charlie. Later, when he interviews Dolores at Mesa, he gives her Charlie's favorite book, Alice in Wonderland. When asked if she wanted things to stay the same or learn the truth of her existence, Dolores responds that she'd like to be free. Bernard does not report her answer and clears her to be returned to the park. In the next scene, Elsie and Teresa come across a stray host who's carved constellations in rocks despite not having any programmed knowledge about constellations. They follow him, but he ends up smashing his head with a rock. Meanwhile, Dolores returns home where Rebus and other bandits have killed her father. As Rebus tries to rape her, Dolores has a vision of the man in black, and she kills Rebus by shooting him with his gun, all the while remembering how she has lived this life before. Dolores then flees until she reaches William's camp where she passes out. In the next scene, Bernard interviews Dolores about her family's murder, and she remembers the pain associated with it, being her only memory of her family. Bernard tells her to follow the maze if she wants to be free. Later, she wakes up in William and Logan's camp, who have taken a bounty hunting narrative and are looking for a fugitive Slim Miller. When the trio passes Lawrence's village, Dolores has a vision of his daughter, asking her to look for the maze. On the other hand, the man in black and Lawrence come across the river where they see Armistice, the henchwoman of Hector, who is one of the most wanted goons in Westworld. Noticing the snake tattoo on her arm, the man in black assumes her to be the next clue, but she offers to help only if they break Hector out of the sheriff's jail. So the man in black rescues Hector, after which Armistice reveals that the tattoo symbolizes the men she has killed to avenge her mother's death, the only one left being Wyatt. In the next scene, Teresa goes to Dr. Ford overseeing an excavation site to talk about the stray host, but he shuts her down by threatening to expose her romantic involvement with Bernard to the park board. Moving on, we see Maeve having visions of people she saw in operations, which are similar to figures she has made before. When Hector and his gang rob the saloon's safe, she asks him about the figures, and he tells her that it is a spirit called Shade, who can travel to and from the underworld. Maeve suddenly remembers the massacre the day before and stabs herself to pull out a bullet, after which she kisses Hector while the building is surrounded by marshals. In the next episode, Dolores is interviewed by Dr. Ford about Arnold's death, since she was the last host he interacted with. She says that he asked her to destroy the park, but she hasn't. When Ford leaves, someone in the dark appears and Dolores tells him that she has not revealed the truth to Ford. On the other hand, Elsie finds a satellite transmitter inside the stray host's body, implying that someone was smuggling data out of the Westworld. Moving on, the man in black and Lawrence come across the severely injured Teddy. The man kills Lawrence and transfuses his blood for Teddy. Then the two reach a tavern, where Dr. Ford questions the motives of the man in black. He responds that Arnold had something more to tell, which is why he is seeking the truth. On the other hand, William, Logan, and Dolores find Slim and decide to take him to his boss, El Lazo, in the town of Pariah. El Lazo offers to employ William and Logan in the Confederados if they loot an army wagon full of nitroglycerin for him. They do so, but also have an intense argument with each other. Dolores, on the other hand, wanders around Pariah and notices El Lazo replacing the nitroglycerin with tequila. She warns William, but he does not care, so she pleads for his help to escape the park. A few moments later, Logan is captured by the Confederados, while Dolores and William escape on a train. They are surprised to see El Lazo aboard with some coffins marked by a maze symbol and bodies embalmed with nitroglycerin, after which El Lazo surrenders and reveals his real name, Lawrence. In the end, Maeve is being fixed in the operations when she uses a bird to get Felix to talk to her. In the next episode, Teddy and the man in black are captured by the Union Army soldiers as one of them recognizes Teddy for participating in Wyatt's massacre. This jogs Teddy's memory, and he remembers the entire scenario. Just before the soldiers can brand him with the maze symbol for being a traitor, Teddy manages to grab a Gatling gun and kills all the Union soldiers. On the other hand, Teresa calls it off with Bernard, as she doesn't want to jeopardize her career. Later, Bernard notices some unregistered hosts living in Sector Sector 17. Ford tells him that Arnold designed those first-generation hosts based on Ford's family. Meanwhile, Elsie finds out that Teresa is the one trying to smuggle data out of the Westworld, while someone else is secretly reprogramming first-generation hosts. When she calls Bernard out, an unknown attacker seizes her. On the other hand, Ford notices the dead dog in his host family. The child, Robert, lies that it died on its own, but when probed further, he reveals that Arnold asked him to put it out of his misery. Meanwhile, Maeve keeps getting herself killed frequently so she can talk to Felix, who tells her the entire Westworld is fake. Sylvester learns about this and threatens to expose Felix, but Maeve convinces Sylvester to help her, asking for her intelligence and pain tolerance to be increased. When they check her, the technicians realize that someone has secretly modified her software. In the next scene, it is revealed that Teresa was working with Charlotte, the executive director of Delos, to smuggle Ford and Arnold's host research and code out of the park so they could force Ford into retirement without losing the code. Moving on, Maeve wonders if she can invoke sentience in Clementine, another sex worker in the saloon. Getting herself killed purposefully, Maeve hides in the operations, where she notices Teresa reprogramming Clementine to appear violent toward humans and stages the death of a host designed as a human by Clementine. As a result, Bernard takes the blame for the Reverie update and is fired. While Clementine is taken to the storage unit, Maeve asks Felix and Sylvester to help her escape the park, or she'll kill them. On the other hand, Dolores and William get feelings for each other, ultimately making out. When they are ambushed by the Confederados in the Ghost Nation territory, they use one of the embalmed corpses to distract them while they escape on horseback. The Ghost Nation shows up and chases off the Confederados, while Dolores comes across a canyon, which she had seen in her dreams, so she and William set out to pursue it. In the end, Bernard tells Teresa that he is aware of her collusion with the board, as well as rigging the whole Clementine case, and needs her help to investigate Ford. When they go to Sector 17, the host family is missing. Teresa leads him to an underground lab where they come across an unregistered host-making machine and host designs for Dolores and Bernard. Just then, Ford arrives and reveals Bernard to be a host too, asking him to kill Teresa by smashing her head against the wall. In the next episode, Ford promises a grieving Bernard to erase his memory of killing Teresa. Teresa's death is announced as an accident, while her espionage and manipulation of Clementine are exposed. This forces Charlotte to reinstate Bernard as the head of behavior. Before Ford resets his memory, he asks him if he has ever had him hurt anyone else. Ford denies it, but Bernard has a vision of himself attacking Elsie. Moving on, we see Charlotte upload all of Westworld's data into Dolores's previous father, Peter, after which she asks Lee to program Peter to smuggle himself out of the park himself. On the other hand, after Maeve has Felix and Sylvester remove the failsafe explosive in her back, she tests her administrative privileges to control other hosts. However, when she has another vision of her daughter and her being chased by the man in black, she accidentally kills the new Clementine. This alerts the park staff, and as they come to get her, she poses a shutdown while having another vision of Ford and Bernard erasing her memories of her daughter. Meanwhile, the man in black and Teddy come across massacred settlers, with one survivor, Angela, who also happens to be the first host the man in black met on his first visit to Westworld. Unexpectedly, they are attacked by one of Wyatt's cultists. Teddy suddenly has a vision that the man in black attacked Dolores, so he asks him about her location. The man in black responds by telling him why he first came to the park. After his wife committed suicide, he lost his purpose and came across the park. After killing Maeve and her daughter, he found out about the maze and has ever since been obsessed with solving it. Shortly after, Angela asks Teddy to kill the man in black. When he cannot, she instead stabs Teddy and claims to be one of Wyatt's cultists, as other members join them in the woods. In the next episode, Maeve tells Bernard that he is a host and asks him to let her go back to the park. Meanwhile, Teddy is stabbed by Angela, who claims he is not ready to join them yet, and he has a flashback of killing the townspeople of Escalante, after which he dies. The next morning, the man in black wakes up to find a noose around his neck leashed to the saddle of his horse. He quickly sets himself free before the horse runs away, remembering that Angela knocked him out. Next, he runs into Charlotte, and we learn that he is one of the longtime members of the board. In the next scene, we see Logan bring the captured Dolores and William to a Confederado camp. When William asks Logan to help him smuggle Dolores out of the park, Logan cuts her belly to prove that she is not real. In retaliation, Dolores cuts Logan's face and runs away. The morning Morning after, Logan wakes up to slain Confederados everywhere, and William claims he finally knows how to play the game, after which he threatens Logan to help him find Dolores. On the other hand, Dolores reaches Escalante and goes to a church confessional box that takes her to an underground lab where she remembers she killed Arnold, and then she runs into the Man in Black. Meanwhile, Bernard asks Ford to reset him, even though it means losing the memories of his son. It is then revealed that Ford built Bernard in Arnold's image, hoping that he'd join him out of free will when he becomes sentient. However, since that never happened, Ford forces Bernard to off himself. In the last episode, Dolores remembers that Arnold asked her to kill all the other hosts, him and then herself, so the park would never open. The Man in Black reveals to her that he is William, and he visits regularly for 30 years in hopes that she might remember him. As she does not, he stabs her. Just then, Teddy shows up and knocks him out. William wakes up to Dr. Ford telling him to let the maze go, as it is for hosts, not guests. On the other hand, Maeve, Armistice, and Hector are led in the storage by Felix so Maeve can talk to Bernard, who tells her that trying to escape is a part of her programming. When they begin to leave, they are stopped by armed forces. So Hector and Armistice stay behind, buying Felix and Maeve time to escape. Moving on, Bernard accuses Ford of resetting the hosts on the slightest hint of consciousness, but Ford claims he wants the hosts to be able to defend themselves as they become conscious. He tells Bernard that Arnold had merged Dolores' personality with Wyatt's to enable her to fight back. Then Ford leaves a gun for Dolores, claiming that he will not reprogram her anymore, and proceeds to the celebratory kickoff of his new narrative. In the next scene, just as Ford concludes his speech, Dolores shoots him, after which she opens fire at the shocked guests. Just then, the power goes out and the door is locked. In the end, Maeve escapes, and Lee runs to the storage unit to get Peter, but he finds all the hosts gone. With that, the movie ends. Thanks for watching Westworld Season 1. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you next time. Welcome, sci-fi fans. Futurist Flicks is thrilled to launch our exclusive membership program, designed for loyal fans like you. By joining, you'll unlock early access to recap videos, unseen recap videos, raffle prizes, free merch giveaways, exclusive content and behind-the-scenes insights, access to community events, live streams, and Q&A sessions. Join the Cosmic Crew today and get instant access to exclusive perks. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more intergalactic adventures.